episode 428 of the Global from Asia podcast. Spatial computing and why Hong Kong is positioned for the growth there. Talking some new tech, blockchain, and more. Let's tune in.
Welcome to the Global from Asia podcast, where the daunting process of running an international business is broken down into straight-up, actionable advice. And now, your host, Michael Michelini.
globalfromasia.com/spatial-computing is our URL. As always, 428 shows. Numbers keep going up, and this show is going up. We're talking about spatial computing going vertical. Nils, he's founder and CEO of Alki Labs and building amazing things. We're diving into the history. Also, Hong Kong and Asia, we cross paths a lot in the startup ecosystems in Beijing and down in the south in Bangkok. Not Bangkok, I'm down here. He's in Hong Kong, building an amazing new tech. And we talk about why Hong Kong and why Asia. And I think him and I are similar paths here with the Asia position. Also, of course, talking about new things in blockchain and new things in just technology and spatial computing, this hot keyword. We have a fascinating discussion. After the interview, I'll give some of my insights as well about what I think is the future here in Asia and more, and just some fun stuff at the blah, blah, blah session. But let's go into the interview with Nils. Thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you enjoy this show. Are you looking for USA banking solutions for your e-commerce business? I am proud to say Mercury.com is supporting the podcast here third year in a row at Global from Asia, and we're proud to say it because we use them ourselves for many of our own Amazon brands and e-commerce brands and joint ventures with our US structures, and they're super easy to do, online application, no fees, and they have great customer support, have helped us with trouble with Amazon Seller Central over the years about some receipts and statements and everything like that. So we're so happy to say thank you, Mercury, for supporting our show, being a great service, and supporting other e-commerce sellers. We're really proud to say they're a sponsor here, and we also have a video tutorial as well as an overview and a special link with a little bonus for you as well for us under certain conditions. Check it out at globalfromasia.com/Mercury for that information. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Mercury. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another Global from Asia podcast. Over 10 years doing these, and I think even before this show started, I came across Nils and some of his partners and team there. It's really great to come have him on the show. He's co-founder, CEO of a very interesting spatial computing project. Alki Labs is the operating, and then it's post-mesh, which is something I'm going to learn about. And I think a lot of us are going to learn about, but it's very much into the future. And I think Hong Kong, we want to talk about why Hong Kong, why Asia, the whole structures, the arboreal cities and other things. But before we get into it, you're from Switzerland, I believe?
Almost. I'm from Sweden a long
Sweden,
time
excuse
ago.
me.
Yeah, the other one.
Okay. Yeah, I always joke about my American background. Europe is like one country.
Basically, yeah.
But yeah, you've been in Asia for quite some time, and project's great with industry leaders. You have great backers. You're really working hard to give real utility with what's happening in AI and blockchain to basically do augmented reality and giving AI robotics machine the new world, right? The new world where robots and AIs will be talking to each other, right? I still think as we record this show, at least for me, I still haven't gotten my mind around that kind of a world where humans are not even involved with interactions. Still, I think we're in the middle of these interactions, but also it's just amazing. So you're looking to, I have a whole bio here, but you guys are doing amazing things. DPIN is a big hot keyword. So you're right in the middle of DPIN, which is basically decentralizing these physical items, as far as I understand. I'm going to learn from you today, and we'll link up on the show notes. But do you want to maybe give a little bit of a background about how you got started in business and in Asia, and then I think we're going to focus on Hong Kong and Asia as like startups and tech.
Sure. So I came to Asia back in 2009. I moved to Beijing. I didn't know that it was a long-term move. I was going to do a semester abroad. My then girlfriend was American-born Chinese and wanted to visit China once. She signed up for a semester abroad. I was taking a sabbatical at the time, so I thought,
Nice.
why don't I go finish my book in Beijing? I thought I was writing a book. I ended up not writing a book, but I thought I was writing a book. I came to Beijing and immediately fell in love with Beijing and became convinced that this is the Asian century. I was just completely struck with how quickly things move, how
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial people were, the just extreme grind set that people have. And I kind of fell in love with the ecosystem and the kind of people that you would run into. People that had come to Beijing from all over China and all over the world came there because they wanted to accomplish something. And it
True.
was
Yeah.
a very captivating kind of environment to be in. I ended up staying for 7 years in Beijing.
Mm.
Now I'm in Hong Kong, which is my my new great love. I used to be extremely loyal to Beijing, but I have to say, after having lived in Hong Kong for a while, I've seen the light. And now when it comes to spatial computing, the field that I've been in since 2019, I think you can make a very, very compelling case that Hong Kong has the perfect set of circumstances to really come out as the global leader in spatial computing, not just competitive with Silicon Valley, but outperforming Silicon Valley when it comes to spatial computing for a couple of reasons. One place where I like to start, especially for an English speaking, perhaps Western audience, is to talk a little bit about scale and three dimensionality. If we look at the greatest city in the Western world by size, the biggest city in the Western world, infrastructure wise, is the city of New York. You know,
Yeah, I
New
was
York has
thinking, yeah,
over
yeah.
900 buildings taller than 100 meters, which is very impressive until you consider that Hong Kong has over 4,000 buildings taller than 100 meters.
Mm.
And this has a big impact on the need for spatial computing, actually. The GPS, even though people don't think about it, is actually a kind of line of sight
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't
Up
work
and
in
down.
big
Yeah.
Asian cities. By the standards of this century, the Asian century, all of the big cities in the world are in Asia, and GPS is not a good way for moving around, partially just because of the poor signal, but also because GPS is made for 2D navigation.
Mm-hmm.
Hong Kong is not a two-dimensional city. So when we started showing off our spatial computing capabilities to investors globally, we very quickly noticed that when we showed it to Asian investors, they thought about things like navigation. And when we showed it to Western investors, they thought about entertainment and gaming. And
Mm.
I think it is what's going to make someone wear a pair of AR glasses for several hours every day. I don't think it's Pokemon. I think it's going to be solving some real problem that people have. And things like navigation and communication, putting digital information in its correct physical context. Language is the killer app of AR, and Hong Kong gets it. Not only that, but a huge part of spatial computing, especially in the current paradigm, is computer vision. And the best computer vision people out there today are Chinese, and a lot of them are here in Hong Kong. HKU in particular is just killing it with banger paper after banger paper. It's remarkable how often I'm sitting reading the latest paper on scene reconstruction or something like this, and it are either some very experienced people here or even some kids here in Hong Kong that put out this amazing material. And then third, Hong Kong is incredibly close to your old stomping ground, Shenzhen. Hong
Yeah.
Kong is closer to Shenzhen than San Francisco is to Palo Alto. And Shenzhen is the undisputed king of hardware manufacturing. And when you finally tie all of these advantages together with Hong Kong's local government, who takes geopositioning and smart city as one and the same thing. They recently said that the way you get a smart city is through geospatial data. Like that's how you do it. The Hong Kong government has put together an open source data set, or actually over 500 different geospatial data sets that they've open sourced to make it possible to do cool spatial computing things and smart city things in Hong Kong. When you put all of these things together, I find it very hard to believe that there's another place in the world that is going to be more impactful for the development of spatial computing. And that means that Hong Kong has a very big role to play in artificial intelligence as well, because spatial computing is the ability for computers to understand their physical surrounding.
Mm.
Without spatial computing, artificial intelligences are confined to the internet and can only understand what's on the internet. With spatial computing, artificial intelligences can join us on the front lines of physical workspaces as well. And
Mm.
that's what we are doing at Alki Labs. We're making applications for retail staff, for example, to use
Yeah.
augmented reality for communication and pathfinding to make their day-to-day more efficient.
Well, yeah, there was a lot there, but I think I put a note the spatial navigation for AI, right? It's like, and you're saying like Asia is about navigation, the investors, where West is thinking about it as like a game. Yeah, like there was that Pokemon craze. I don't know. I felt like it was just like a week long, or at least on the news for a week, where people were going all over the world, like trying to get the Pokemon on the. There was that first application like many years ago. You probably know. I forget. It was like a Pokemon app where people were trying to get the. I think it was Japan or something. There was like a whole bunch of people just like in traffic, like running through traffic to try to get something. I forgot the.
Pokemon Go by
Yeah,
Niantic was a global phenomenon. They
yeah,
made, I believe, $5 billion in revenue. It's the most successful augmented reality application by far. Like, arguably, there hasn't been another
yeah.
successful
It's like the
augmented
only
reality
thing I can
application.
think
It's
of,
like
right?
they're
Yeah.
the one. And I think that has really, the success of that has really colored the imagination of the Western VC, whereas the problems that you face in these, we like to call them arboreal cities, these
Yeah.
dimensional tall cities, arboreal being in
Yeah,
portmanteau, urban and arboreal, tree-like.
mm,
The VCs here see a different set of needs that need to be addressed. So I would be willing to bet several toes that Hong Kong is going to be the first city where a third of the population, something like this, wears AR glasses daily. It's going to be Hong Kong. It's definitely not going to be New York. It's definitely not going to be Silicon Valley. It's going to be Hong Kong.
yeah, because like yeah, like you said, like up and down. Although I have to say, it happened to me in Japan. Well, I wasn't as familiar. I've only been to Japan a couple times, but I was trying to use Google Maps, and I went to an intersection and I couldn't cross, and there was a bridge, and I had to walk like half a block back to get up the bridge to cross the road. Like I don't know if I couldn't. Yeah, like there was a lot of this, and so like yeah, so I could see people wearing these AR glasses and using this technology, like you say, to know what level, right? Up, because yeah, like these buildings are all so tall, right? So it's
Yeah.
you think about Hong Kong, right? Even those kind of like old industrial buildings have like huge amount of floors, and yeah, you have that long list of like a menu on the lobby of what floor, and there's like 10 things per floor, 10 offices, right? And you're trying to figure out where to go. So yeah, I could see that. And then you make me think of those. I think it's like a Tom Cruise movie with self-driving cars that goes against up along a building, up building. I forget Minority Report maybe movie.
Mhm.
And so like you said, the AI needs that to go up or down, right? Like not just left or right, like three dimensional. And yeah, it's really cool. I can think all these futuristic movies becoming true now with this.
Spatial computing is spatial awareness for computers, meaning
Spatial.
it's spatial awareness for AI.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, without spatial computing, AI has no understanding of the physical world. One way that we highlight that with our own products right now is retailers have been using computer vision for a long time. They might put up physical cameras in the store that look for things like an empty shelf. And if that computer vision detects an empty shelf, it detects that empty shelf in screen space. What does that mean? Well, a camera has no depth perception. It doesn't understand how far away something is or something like that. So it's really just telling you in what part of the picture, where in screen space is the empty shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then you have to, as a human, do a mapping of which camera is this, where in the store is this camera, and you have to have some kind of human readable translation of if this camera can see this empty shelf, then I need to go to this part of the store. Quite complicated. But once you give the camera an understanding of its own position in 3D space and what the 3D space looks like, our computer vision can actually tell you directly in a 3D map where is the empty shelf. So what we demo here in our demo space is that when our little robot that drives around looking for empty shelves finds an empty shelf, then I get a notification on my phone that will guide me directly to the empty shelf in question. And of course, a phone in my hand is just an AI being carried around by my
Yeah.
human legs. A the difference between a robot and an iPhone is the amount of legs it has.
Mm.
The iPhone is just using me for locomotion. So if you want a robot that can go and restock the shelf itself, it needs to know where in the store is it. And that's a lot harder problem than people think. It's not something you could just use the GPS for.
I think it's another point to worth noting for those that don't know, but Hong Kong is also super expensive in real estate, and every square inch is valuable, right? So, like and like another point is like empty shelf space at a store is much more valuable and well, I guess it's losing money because they gotta make as much sales as they can to pay that rent, and that cost of is I think another factor probably, right, for the requirements and needs of this.
Absolutely. The cost of real estate here makes the retail behavior quite different. Without naming names, I can say that one of our clients, they don't even have a warehouse. Like having a warehouse is too expensive. So they only carry in their store what will fit in the store. And this means that the store layout has to change all the time to accommodate new shipments. Like, oh, we just ordered a pallet of potato chips, and each one of these bags has to be in the store. So it's a constantly changing layout. You can't even rely on a traditional map because it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And the reason why is it would be too expensive for them to have a warehouse.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talk about Amazon a bit here in e-commerce. And yeah, like we all try to also, nobody wants to have dead inventory, right? Or extra costs. Warehouse is just extra costs. So that, yeah, I just know how serious it is in Hong Kong. So I just want to make sure people also put that into account.
In
Yeah,
my local grocery store where I buy my eggs and milk, the aisles are so narrow that they cannot
exactly.
pass each other,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
They're less than a meter wide. And again, it's because real estate is so expensive. So if I go shopping with my son, when I have him on a carrier on my belly, literally have to wait for the aisle to clear before I can walk in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's also so this future is yeah, like an AI bot carrying restocked items into an empty shelf, going down that narrow aisle, like going up to shelf five and then dropping the cereal there and then going back to the dock, I guess, right? And then picking up more. It's a wild world. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I think within this decade in Hong Kong, we will see ceiling mounted robots that navigate the store upside down so they don't compete for floor space with us
it's
and handle restocking tasks.
like a spider. It makes you think of a spider. It's up on the
Yeah,
ceiling, kind of going around, carrying
that would be a
stuff.
great product name, the Spider. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So So yeah, I know you talk a lot about retail, right? And retail's under threat from e-commerce. It's been a story we talk about here. We're more e-com sellers in here because that's where the entrepreneurs are making their money. But you're trying to help retail, right? Like get to become e-commerce or compete with e-commerce or if I recall some of your work, I think you've
I
talked about
think
this.
in the age of AI that we're entering now, we've been touching on already in this podcast that computers don't have spatial awareness. Another way that we can think of this is an AI has full access to your e-commerce business because it's completely digital. Like
Hmm.
it's very easy for e-commerce to involve AI. And that's meaningful because AI is, if it's not already today, it's very soon going to be both the best and the cheapest worker available.
True.
And that labor enhancement is not available to retail without spatial
Got it.
computing. So without spatial computing, it's just a complete walkover. AI, all the benefits just go to e-commerce unless the retailers adopt spatial computing. So I think already e-commerce has had a couple of fantastic advantages over retail for some time now. Three things that I like to highlight are discovery, search, and personalization. What do I mean by that? Well, discovery is how you get exposed to different products, right? In physical retail, discovery can be described as eye level is buy level. The retailer has to figure out what products to place at eye level where you're more likely to see them. And that doesn't shuffle around or anything like that is what it is. Whereas in
Hmm.
e-commerce, discovery can be context based, it could be based on time of day, it could be based on your personal preferences. So discovery is just way better in e-commerce. And then we have search, right? And the obvious thing that everyone understands is like, oh, you can search in e-commerce, but you can't search in physical retail. In physical retail, search means walking around or asking a staff member that's going to ask another staff member. But there's actually a less obvious thing that disadvantages retail, which is when I search for something on your e-commerce site, even if you don't have it, that I looked for it. And that's super valuable because you can use this information to change what items you have in stock. But
Hmm.
when someone looks for something in physical retail and they don't find it, you had no idea that that happened, right? And that is a huge disadvantage for retail. And then finally, obviously, personalization. E-commerce, you can completely personalize everything. And even though my local grocery store knows that I put oat milk in my coffee, they can't advertise oat milk to me when I'm in the store,
Hmm.
right? They're going to show me sausages like they show everyone else. But in e-commerce, it can be perfectly tailored to me. And I think that spatial computing changes these four things. One is the
Yeah.
access to AI, the other is the ability to improve discovery through augmented reality, and search
Mm.
through augmented reality, and personalization through augmented.
Yeah.
So spatial computing really levels the playing field, we believe, for retail. And without
Uh,
spatial computing, these four things will just make e-commerce dominate retail.
that makes sense. So then, so the solution would be I'm wearing an AR glass or the Apple Vision in a store, and then it would do these different features because it has spatial compute enabled
You can
store.
even do it with your phone. It doesn't have to be a headset. What we're doing with our customers now is completely phone-based. Your iPhone is a part-time spatial computer. You flip the right switch and it does spatial computing.
Mm.
So we've done really cool things both for staff, which is the main thing we focus on, but also for the shoppers themselves, where the shoppers themselves can find what they're looking for more easily and see, even if you want to be completely privacy preserving and not personalized, you can still do day parted advertising, which is really meaningful. Some products sell more in the evening and then
Yeah.
in the morning. And when you're doing augmented reality, you choose for every part of the day what is the most reasonable item to show.
Yeah. Like even here in Thailand, it was raining and I ran to a corner store and I asked for an umbrella. They don't even have an umbrella. How does a store on the side of a road not have an umbrella for the rain? But imagine you have maybe even your phone, like you say. I have to try that myself, but you have some AR headset on and you're like, you could just see where the umbrellas are, right? Like
Yeah.
this store has an umbrella, go in here, get an umbrella. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I think a good way to think of augmented reality is not that it's disruptive to Google Maps, it's more that it's disruptive to search, actually,
Mm,
because it can help you find things in your vicinity that you can buy. A lot of why e-commerce has been doing so well is that it's so inconvenient to go physically look for something. But if you can make it a lot more convenient to physically look for something, and I can get that umbrella or coffee machine or whatever it is I'm looking for and get it straight away. The fastest way to get same way delivery is to just walk me to the store and I can pick it up for myself.
yeah. I want to get into, of course, privacy and decentralization, which I think you're doing right. But before, I just want to maybe some of my own personal request or knowledge, but hopefully helpful for others. Is it like going to be something I call static? Like if I'm selling a bike in my house, like a secondhand bike, and somebody around my area could see I'm selling a bike, would I be able to like share it to those people? Like, is it like a platform? Like, I'm still not sure what's the medium of this information. Maybe that does lead into this privacy decentralization, but where's this data and how is it served and how is it shared to those in my vicinity? I'm still
So
not grasping that.
we have to separate the underlying positioning protocol, the post mesh, from app logic on top of it. So in a scenario like the one you described, where someone makes an app where you can list your bike, that app may have some data about you and your bike, etc. But the Positioning system should not know that. The positioning system just needs to be a reference for your app to use.
Mm.
Why is this a concern? Well, okay, the way that post GPS positioning is done by 7 out of 10 of the biggest companies by market cap in the world is through this thing called visual positioning. And the way visual positioning works is essentially you're comparing the sensor information from your camera to a digital representation of the world that lives on their cloud. Basically, the trade-off is if you tell me what you're looking at, I will tell you where you are. That's how these centralized visual positioning systems work. And what's scary, like we don't think about that when we have phones, like whatever. But if you're wearing a pair of next generation AR glasses and whoever provided them for you know what you're looking at all times, that becomes pretty scary. And the way we are approaching this is to decentralize the visual positioning. So instead of us operating a cloud that does positioning for you, we want to make it possible for local spaces to host their own interoperable visual positioning so that when you walk into the mall, because the mall already knows you're in there, right? The mall can provide visual positioning for you, and the mall will know that you're in the mall like they already do. There's no new information there, but we won't know, and Google won't know. And that's important. No one company should be aggregating all of the information of what everyone is looking at. Instead, we can have much more intimate relationships with the physical spaces that we visit. They
Mm.
already know. Like when you walk into your local grocery store, they have CCTV cameras, etc. They already know you're in there. There's no surprise there. A lot of them can even figure out where people are looking, things like this.
Yeah.
It's not that scary to imagine that your local grocery store is doing something with that information. It's easy for you to
Mm.
switch grocery stores if you think they're abusive. But if there's
Mm.
one central company that provides positioning for everything and knows everything you're looking at, that's that's too much power.
I I guess the answer is Apple knows all of that with especially with their new hardware, but even with their current hardware, they probably know all that, right?
You may have
Yeah.
heard that the company iRobot recently had a merger struck down. One of the big 10 companies wanted to buy iRobot. iRobot is the company that makes the Roomba vacuum cleaning robot,
Yeah, the Roomba
right?
I know. Yeah.
Who it was that tried to buy the Roomba?
Probably Apple. I don't know.
It was Amazon,
Oh,
right?
Amazon. Okay.
Yeah, that's how scary this gets. Why does Amazon want to buy Roomba? Well, because they want to know how big your living room is. That's what they want to know. It's not that Amazon is getting into the vacuum cleaner business. No, they're in the business of knowing everything about you. So they wanted to buy the robotic vacuum cleaner.
Scary. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, well, I'm happy to know you're working on decentralizing this versus yeah, because I'm on the same side as you with decentralization of data and privacy. So I think most users need that, but it probably does it trade off on the usability. It's probably harder to use, right? I mean, that's kind of one of the negatives of decentralization. Usually, I mean, I'm not saying your solution is, but usually people still like I even say I like MySpace. I honestly like MySpace over Facebook and I liked eBay over Amazon, but most people liked Amazon or Facebook because it was easy to use, right? It was a standard layout and standard data could be inputted and blah, blah, blah. Like, but people like easy. So I always have these arguments about people about decentralization in general, and they think it's just usually too difficult, especially like, but hopefully, but it seems like your solution is somewhat straightforward, right? You have the application level and then the data level, and they're separate, and we just access it, and then this. So yeah,
It
I'm
makes it
getting.
harder for us. It doesn't necessarily make it harder for the end user because the end user doesn't see any of this complexity.
Mm.
But it's hard for us to make this interoperable protocol that works just as well with a robot as with your headset, as with your phone. There's a lot of complexity that we have to handle. But luckily, a couple of interesting trends have made it possible to compete with big tech now. And all of them are loosely tied to blockchain. So on the one hand, it's now possible to do DePIN, which is a huge part of what we do. What's really cool with DePIN is that people can now fund, operate, and maintain civilization scale infrastructure. And that's meaningful on a moral level, but it's also meaningful technically because there are many scenarios, not every scenario, but many scenarios where decentralized infrastructure will outperform centralized infrastructure. So, for example, one of the things that's very important for us with collaborative spatial computing is network latency. And the best thing to do to reduce network latency is to make sure you have the shortest possible path over the internet from point A to point B. And the networking layer of the post mesh already has more physical touch points than any of the major cloud providers, meaning that we can, at least in theory, for almost any scenario, provide lower latency on average than any Web2 provider could.
Awesome.
But we can also do that at a lower cost because it's increasing the utilization rate of computers that already exist. Just like Airbnb and Uber increase the utilization rate of our homes and our cars, decentralized infrastructure networks and decentralized sensor networks increase the utilization rate of hardware and compute that's already out in the world and can be very competitive in that sense. The other way, or rather, the second part is really just an emphasis on the fund part. One of the things that the bull run of 2021 demonstrated with this massive investment into the metaverse hashtag is that we now live in an era where the people can fund the things that they're interested in. And of course, there were a lot of things that went wrong with the 2021 bull run and a lot of misallocation of funds. Sure, there's a lot of things that need to get ironed out, but it's clear that the financial plumbing for people to come together and fund things together exists now. And they can own and operate infrastructure networks together now. These are two massive software updates to our civilization that I think we haven't really come to terms with yet, how disruptive that is going to be. And we believe at Auki that it will allow us to really compete with someone like Apple or Microsoft because we can build it with the power of democracy and the free market. And that's amazing.
Power to the people. Yeah, I'm a big fan too. I've been studying this, and also I mentioned a bit about load pipe and chat about a show. We're trying to kind of decentralize the marketplace of Amazon e-commerce because we're all sick. We're all sick and tired of, I think, everybody, but especially on the seller side or on the business side, people are just tired. They can just feel the stronghold of these large tech companies that control our life and can turn us off at any time for basically any reason that they come up with. So it's really great what you're doing, and I'm happy we got you on the show. So yeah, aukilabs.com is the best place. It's also postmesh.org Foundation, which is the protocol, right? Where should people, is there something people can take action with today or go to or learn more about? Or maybe what's your plans this year?
If people want to participate in the postmesh, they should definitely go to postmesh.org and follow at postmesh on Twitter.
Okay.
You can already participate in our network and be part of our networking infrastructure layer. Later this year, you will be able to be part of the compute layer and the storage layer as well. So if you want to be part of the decentralized positioning system of the future and machine proprioception for AI, go to postmesh.org and follow us on Twitter at postmesh.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Niels. This was fun.
Thank you, Mike.
Save the date. Cross-Border Summit 2024 is coming back. 2023's was epic. Never got such great feedback in all of our events. Cross-Border Summit 2024, we're planning already a year in advance. Save the date. November 14th and 15th will be the core event, but of course, it is a full week of amazing things. There's pre-events, post-events, workshops, trainings, elephant sanctuaries. We have a lot of amazing things here in Chiang Mai, Thailand again. So I would love to see you there. We've already pre-sold some tickets to previous people. We will be opening up tickets soon. Subscribe to get updates at 2024.crossbordersummit.com. Also check out videos and testimonials from last year as well as all of our years. We did them in China, and this will be our 6th one. It will be great to meet you there and network and make some great relationships. I can't wait. November 2024. Thank you, Nils. That was fun. I'm happy we've been crossing paths around in Asia and in the startup space and common friends and everything. So it's just amazing to see him grow and this in this new and abundant ecosystem and world of spatial compute and blockchain and everything. So I'm really excited to see how this continues to grow. I'll have to stop by in Hong Kong. I have to get there. I haven't been there in a while. So I said I would blah, blah, blah about why I think Hong Kong as well as Asia. I've been out here in Asia since 2007, which is getting crazy. Can almost say 20 years soon. Time is just flying, like they say in life. But basically, why? I recorded this honestly without my microphone, so I'm re-recording. And the main point is, I think, diversity in competition with cultures and governments. Go where you're treated best is what I always think of with our buddy Andrew Henderson and Nomad Capitalist. But it's true, if there's only one government and these huge governments that are existing, these mega governments and maybe the New World Order, I think that stuff kind of stifles competition, especially within some of the newer industries growing now, like in blockchain and the Web3 space. Some of these bigger countries don't like it. So I think because we have this competition for innovation, it gives more opportunities. If everybody spoke the same language, there was one country, one government, one currency, I think that's one of my favorite things about Asia is all these currencies, all these languages, all this chaos and energy, honestly, is one of my favorite parts, and this growth and this development and this insanity in a way. But like he says, Nils, in the interview, like this very compact, high-density place in Hong Kong needs this technology more and is using it more practically than just video games in the West. But this is just what's always been exciting to me is high impact, high density, new developing technologies and new developing markets. This is what's always gotten me, I think maybe some movies I watched when I was a kid, but it's happening here. It's happening here. And I think it's going to continue to happen here in Asia. And I'm excited to be part of it. I hope you are too. But I mean, you shouldn't, just based on where you're born and based on what you do, you shouldn't really control your outcome in your life. I hope this show or other shows I've done is maybe educated you, empowered you, motivated you to take action. I think many of us are just building, right? We don't have to get permission. We don't have to hope that somebody allows us to do something. And that's what's really fun. So I hope you enjoyed this show. globalfromasia.com/spatial-computing. Till next time, see you later. Bye-bye.
To get more info about running an international business, please visit our website at www.globalfromasia.com. That's www.globalfromasia.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our iTunes feed. Thanks for tuning in.